Well, hello there. A little bit of a different angle on my garden. As you know, I aim to go live at 4:30 p.m. British Summer Time every Tuesday. Now the problem is, I'd forgotten that this week it's half term, and so there's lots of family fun happening. So I am pre-recording this video for you. I'm hoping to set it as a premiere, so I should be able to join you in the comments. Hello and welcome, it's Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. Now I've changed my camera angle this week in order that you can get a better view of our peonies. These are coral charm, and they always seem to bloom in the May half term, and quite often we're away during the May half term, so the flowers are all sort of hinting that they're going to burst into bloom. We go on holiday and then come back and find that all the flowers have gone over. So this year, because of exams, we are at home for half term. So for one of the first times, we're actually going to be able to enjoy them. So if you grow peonies, let me know in the comment what varieties you grow. As I say, these are coral charm. They are still fashionable, but the reason we planted them was when I first started rejuvenating my business and teaching online, which must be 10 years ago, they were ultra fashionable. And as you know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that it's my husband who is the gardener, and he was particularly taken with this flower. He liked the fact it was quite tall, quite giving a good bloom, and the fact about the coral charm is it is this beautiful coral colour at the moment, but it does leach its colour out over time, so it goes through to an apricot and then to a creamy white, and then the petals drop off. Now, when do you pick your peonies to enjoy indoors? Or perhaps you're one of those gardeners that likes to have everything growing out in the garden and you absolutely hate cutting anything down. So the rule is in our house is that I can pick anything I like from the garden, but my husband doesn't want to know where it is, so I can't just decide I'm going to have a bouquet of 20 peonies in the house. I'm going to be a little bit more discerning, and to be honest, because we don't have many flowers in our garden, I don't like to take all of them anyway. And I'm quite interested to see what has been flowering. So last time I looked at the peonies, I think it was this one in particular, I was giving it this little squash test. So the advice is that you shouldn't be cutting your peonies to enjoy indoors until they've reached this marshmallow stage, which can be quite hard to determine what has reached the marshmallow stage if you don't know what you're squeezing for. I can tell though that some of these buds are really tight, so it's just going to be too early to cut them, and probably it's a little late for cutting these. I think I'll probably cut one to put in a vase, but I think they've gone, you know, they're almost on the point of totally opening up, so I think I might leave those to enjoy them actually in the garden. And from our garden, I'm not only enjoying them from the garden, we can also see these from our kitchen table when we have our breakfast and our lunch, and also from the living room when we're sitting down of the evening. So I don't want to crop everything out of the way. But would you like to have a little look and see whether you can deduce from my touch test whether which blooms are going to be suitable for cutting? So the marshmallow test is all about how much give you've got in your flower heads. So here I'm pressing quite firmly and there's no give at all. It's like a hard marble. But when I come down to this one, then you see that there is a little bit of give. So the protective cover here over the bud is starting to peel back, and some of the petals are just giving that suggestion of starting to unfurl. So this would be a really good bloom to cut so that I can enjoy it indoors. You can cut your blooms when they're fully out, but then you're only enjoying part of the life cycle at home. It is so lovely being able to see your peonies open up from this tight bud until they relax open. And for me, with the coral charm, the colour fades and then you've got these beautiful fully headed petals, and then they shatter and fall apart. So I use my floristry scissors for all my cutting, and I'm very carefully stepping into the flower bed, delving down to where I want to go. And I want to have quite a long stem because I don't really have anything else to add into my vase other than my peonies. And I'm thinking that I could get some of the natural foliage with the peonies too. So I think it was that peony there that I was eyeing up. Come down as low as I can. I'll wiggle that out. And then, oh, I can see another one down at the bottom. I think I'm going to head down for that one. This one here looks ripe for the picking. So I've got a tightish bud, one that's nearly fully open, and this one that's lying down, which is part way open. I'm just going to cut 3 today and enjoy them indoors. And the pulling sound you can hear is our national collection of bindweed. And check these out. So we may not have much in the garden in terms of flowers, but what we have got is absolutely gorgeous. Just look how long those stems are. I will say they are coming up to mid-thigh length, longer than my arms. So for today, I'm going to make a very simple arrangement using my small, medium-sized and large flowers, just to celebrate the fact that it's Maytime and the peonies are just coming into bloom. And here I am underneath my coronation bunting, and with my blue jumper on, I seem to be continuing that red, white and blue theme, which I think probably is quite a festive colour coordinate, which I think is a festive colour combination to see us through the summer months. So I've chosen this lovely container here, and I don't know whether by the time you watch this video I will have posted my most recent thrift haul video. So this isn't a recent thrifted find. It is a thrifted find though from several years ago, but I happen to have recently found the sister to this jug and I'm really pleased with it. What I'm going to do is add water. Before I do that, I'm going to use one of my old-fashioned pin holders. And the reason I'm doing this and putting this in the bottom of my jug is because I've only got 3 flowers and they're just going to flop all over the place if I put them just as a cut and plonk into my vase. Okay, imagine if I put them in, they're just going to flop all to one side. So we want to arrange our flowers, keeping the sort of naturalistic look to it, but with a tiny bit of control. So that's a heavy metal weight there, and I'll use my thrifted teapot as a watering can to fill up with water. Then what I like to do is when I arrange my flowers, being a tiny bit mindful of my flower arranging principles and elements of design, and I measure up against the jug how tall I want that first flower to be. So because it's the most open bloom, I'm going to set it down low into my container, taking off the leaves which will sit in the water because I don't want those rotting off, and instead of just letting it flop to the side, I can actually impale it onto those metal pins and it will stay exactly where I want it to go. And then with that leftover bushiness of the natural greenery, I can add in a little bit of green to soften the look, so my flowers won't look quite so lonely. Even one on its own looks fabulous, doesn't it? And then I'm going to go up a little bit higher. So this is my middle-sized one. And again, having a bit of a measure up. How tall do I want that to be? Taking off my excess leaves. This has got a bit of a curve to it. So I might embrace that curve, having that come off just to the side a little bit. And then my third one can go a little bit taller. In fact, I think I'm going to keep it the length it was cut. Just making sure it's got a square edge so it can sit comfortably on the prongs of that metal pin holder. And I'm just thinking it needs a tiny bit of greenery at the side, just to fill in around the edge. So this time I don't need to make sure that prongs onto the pin holder, because I've got enough other bits of greenery for them all to be supporting themselves. Just this one longer piece in. Just going to clean up one of those leaves. Oh, I'm going to pinch it off actually. A little bit dirty. So what do you reckon? Just the simplest of arrangements. 3 seasonal blooms in a thrifted jug with their natural foliage. I've kept it quite tall. Of course, depending on what flowers you've got at home, you could scale everything down. But I always go my largest bloom towards the bottom, and then as you go up, the blooms get progressively smaller, and obviously over time they'll all eventually open out. But you should have this little sequence of size going on, and it'll be quite interesting to see which of my blooms turns that pale apricot and creamy colour first. I don't often get to show you the far end of my garden, so perhaps if you've got a minute, put the kettle on, grab a cup of tea, and I'll give you a tour of my late May garden, the one with no flowers. First of all, we've got the lovely alliums. They are a really deep purple colour, but as they mature, they do get slightly paler. And if I was picking these for indoors, I would probably do the same thing I did with the peonies. Choose a larger head, a middle-sized head, and then a tiny, the budded head, and just watch and wait and enjoy them unfurling indoors. And further along the bed, we've got the native geranium. So this is the crane's bill geranium, a lovely purple head with a little bit of veining inside. And again, it makes a really good cut flower, as well as giving really good ground cover, which means we don't have to do too much weeding. I love the way the very dainty heads jump about in the breeze. I think I've talked about this greenery before. It's just arrived in our garden. Garlic mustard. Although I will say that watching one of the gardening programmes last week, it was referred to, I think, as Jack in the Hedge, and my husband said that's what he remembers it being called as a child. So I have cut this down to use as a foliage in my fresh flower arrangements, and it has stood up really well. And it is a garlic mustard, and you can put it in your salads. So it tastes quite good. And there's the good old euphorbia. So this is quite a heavy-headed variety. I don't use this for cut flowers. I just find it too heavy to fit in the vase. We have got some in the front garden that's slightly more dainty in character, but whenever you use euphorbia, just be careful. The milky sap can be an irritant to your skin. And this is the hedge that we have between us and our neighbours. It's actually grown over lattice fencing. And what I wanted to show you is the little flowers on the holly. So we always think of holly as being a winter, a Christmas festive foliage. And here it is in the early summer with these beautiful little white flowers. And then we've got some jasmine as well. So that would be lovely and scented in the summer evenings. So you can see the little flower heads there starting to develop, and eventually that'll be what gives us the distinctive red berries. And I think this distinctive foliage here is bear's breeches, which is a spike flower in the same sort of style as a lupin or a foxglove, but with white flowers and a sort of grey or pink edge to them. The black seeds on that I think are poisonous, but I guess much of the plant world, anything is poisonous. So flowers and flower arranging are about looking at and enjoying and not actually eating. And can you see the buddleia behind the euphorbia, also known as the butterfly bush? You'll get this growing in all sorts of places. Again, a spike of flower. It can be white, mid-purple, or a really deep purple. I think there's even one called Black Night, which is really quite an intense blackish colour. So this might be considered by some to be a weed. You see it growing out of old walls and things like that. But it's in our garden because it's the butterfly bush. So the butterflies are attracted to it when it comes into flower. And can you see right up there, this is our Cotinus croggia, the smoke bush. So it has these lovely coppery covered leaves, and at this angle with the sun shining behind them, they are translucent. So this is getting a little bit out of control. It's growing quite leggy on our neighbour's side of the fence, but we kept ours more under control on this side. So again, a lovely contrasting foliage in a garden that is mainly foliage. And this is our patch of grass that isn't being cut, so it's No Mow May. You've heard me mention that before, the campaign by the charity Plant Life, who are trying to encourage us not to close crop our lawns in order that the wildflowers grow and it gives the insect life a food source. And then we're at the pond's edge. This little gravelly bit here is where the dog likes to come out first thing in the morning to drink water. You see how the light is sparkling on the surface. You can see some water lilies. And to the back of the pond, I'm just noticing for the first time the white flowers of the Philadelphus. We used to have a Philadelphus growing next to the Cotinus, but I think with all plants they sort of have their life and then they just disappear. But recently I have been doing a flower arrangement for one of my Julie and Julia, the Flower Edit projects, and that called for Philadelphus, and I substituted honeysuckle and jasmine instead. These are highly scented blooms, and when it gets to dusk in the garden, the little white blossoms really do show up. So I think I shall make a point of doing a tour of the garden one evening with a cup of tea in hand, just to marvel at the evening time splendour. As you can see, we take our wild nature seriously in this garden. So the whole garden has been designed for wildlife interest. And here we have a patch of buttercups that actually make quite a good cut flower, as long as you don't cut them too long. And behind is our high-tech system of bird feeder, with a lid on the top to keep out the squirrels. That doesn't always work though. And a bit further on, up into the garden, is the little woodland edge. So when we moved in 20 plus, perhaps even 25 years ago, the whole garden was just laid to lawn and dipping slightly down towards the house. So the top of the garden is higher than the back of the house. So my husband planted a number of trees to create a little woodland fringe. So that is the silver birch there, and another one there. We string a hammock up there in the summer. So there's a little circle of trees with bird feeding stations. And this is the place that my Christmas door wreath has come to die. And beyond is the last of the wild garlic and the marbled leaves of the Arum italicum pictum. These leaves are coming to the end of their season as well. They don't last into the hotter months of June and July. So if I want to use them, I need to pick them from this end of the garden and make use of them in the next couple of days probably. You can see the flowers have started to go over on the wild garlic. There's quite a heady scent along here. It's all looking a bit faded. I've recently bought myself a tiny little food processor. Makes it much easier to make garlic pesto. I've been trying to do it in my big Kenwood chef and it was just too big. I might get one more batch of garlic pesto and perhaps another batch of garlic and cheese scones too. The one problem we've got with our garden is we don't have a side path, so that anything that comes into the garden has to come through the house. So what you might think here is a really messy pile of twigs is actually our dead hedge. So dead wood is really good for the insects. So we try to layer it up at the side of the garden to create a boundary with the neighbour, whilst giving a habitat for the important bugs and creatures that live in the garden. I don't come to this part of the garden very often. When I do, I can use the handy top end of a spade that got broken, and there's a tiny little patch of daylight here. This used to be really overgrown, so there's some mahonia, which is for the winter nectar, another patch of buttercups, I can see some ferns, some lovely native geraniums, more of the forget-me-nots, and lots of ivy growing over an old apple tree. And I think, yes it is, this is an oak. So planning for later life. And here's my final resting place at the bottom of the garden. So this garden bench actually used to be an arbour with roses growing over it in a different part of the garden. And when we revamped, or say when my husband revamped a few years ago, we remodelled the arbour and created a little garden bench out of it. So sitting here amongst the trees, I feel like I really am in a little woodland edge. And beyond, I can see the sunny lawn in our south-facing garden with the house behind. So thank you so much for joining me on today's video. If you think you have a friend who would like to see what an English country garden looks like, do go and share this video with them. I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to, and you want some more behind the scene clips and exciting videos which are private, don't forget to join my special YouTube membership link group. There's a link to that in the description underneath the video. Or in fact, you can watch any of my videos, and where you see the subscribe button, the join button is right next to it. That's all from me for now, and I will definitely be back live here in my garden 4:30 next Tuesday afternoon. Or we have a fox who visits us in our garden, and I have got a sneaking suspicion that the dog has just rolled in some fox poo. Maggie? Maggie?